Hello, and welcome to Italian News, the most reliable news in Italy. I am Cannoli Coffee Pot, and tonight on Italians Being Angry, we have exclusive interviews with some of the people involved in the destructive riot caused by last night's performance from the Futurists. And yes, I am wearing pants. Firstly, we have an attendee of that show. One Miss Valentina Spaghetti. So, Miss Spaghetti, could you please tell us about how you heard about the performance?
Well, it was a Friday night, and after work I decided to go to the bar. After work, like I normally do, but as soon as I got there, it was ambushed by a man in a tuxedo who handed me a ticket. He said that I wouldn't want to miss tomorrow night's show, and that all the information necessary was located on that ticket. He tipped his hat and proceeded to walk right out of the door. I brought it up to some friends of mine, and they all laughed and said that it was those damn Futurists, and I shouldn't even bother going. Of course, curiosity got the better of me, and I wasn't doing anything that night, so I decided to just show up.
Can you tell me a bit about that night?
When I arrived shortly, there were multiple fruit and vegetable stalls outside selling not normal produce, but they were rotten and molded. I passed them by, and the usher showed me to my seat, where, come to find out, someone was already there, in my seat, with an identical ticket. I mean, what was a lady like myself supposed to do? Sit on this random man's lap? I think not. Apparently, the man had the exact same story I did. These people gave us the exact same ticket on purpose. As we settled in, the show began, and I was immediately met with the most horrendous sounding overture. It was just loud noise. The so-called director then came out of the curtain and delivered the most ridiculous manifesto I'd ever heard. It was utter nonsense. Then the performance began, and I didn't even know if I could describe it in detail. It was crude and sexual and wildly distasteful.
Well, what happened after the performance?
Well, all of us were in complete shock. We all got right up from our seats and stormed out of the building. Some people were shouting and cursing the members involved, while others were trying to destroy things. We got outside and the crowd was rowdy, the police had to be called, and my husband had to pick me up from the station. Can you believe that? Me! Arrested.
I am so sorry, Miss Spaghetti. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Next up, we got a chance to talk to a dancer and performer in the show. Hi, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Giovanna Pizza. I was a dancer and a performer in the show that the Futurist put on. I am so lucky I got to work under these amazing artists and be a soloist in a train makes a love duo bald eagle. I've learned so much as a part of this process, and I think we did something really special that has gone unappreciated.
Well, tell me about the show you were performing in.
Well, it was just a normal night for us. We got into our costumes and a makeup and mentally prepared ourselves for the backlash that we were about to receive as we are waiting for the prologue to finish. We heard some a lot of booing and yelling from the audience. But this was not a normal amount of backlash, okay? The audience seemed extra angry tonight. I mean, the barrage of rotten produce has already started. Luckily, the cacophony of sound made by the musicians drowned out the booing a little bit. As we enter, we are immediately pelted with the tomatoes, the lettuce, and moldy carrots. Unfortunately, my big and bulky train costume's headpiece broke during the night before its performance. So I was getting all sorts of junk in my mouth, and my hair, and my eyes. They just don't get.
Well, were you affected by the riot afterwards?
I was completely beaten. I came out into the street and just tried to go home and I got ambushed. Those crews just don't get the message we've been trying to go for. We want to do something new and experimental, something that's never been done before. But for some reason, they don't want to keep open minds. They'd rather throw a riot in the street and beat up anyone involved than listen to the message of peace. I cannot believe that those are poor painters had to sacrifice their own artwork just to protect themselves from the audience. I genuinely think we are pushing the envelope on what is art.
Well, thank you so much, Giovanni Pizza. Have a nice day.
You too.
Lastly, we have a musician for the performance. One Mr. Maserati Gelato. Can you tell us about your history with the Futurist, Mr. Maserati Gelato?
Yeah. I've been working with the Futurist for at least 3 years at this point. Gosh, has it been that long? I still can remember being in desperate need for a job and seeing the flyer that said, musicians wanted. I had never heard of this Marinetti guy, but they were paying and I was far from home. So I showed up with a flyer in hand and they welcomed me before asking about any of my experience with instrumental music. Of course, I didn't want to lose the job, so I said I had been using weird instruments my whole life. They seemed pleased with this answer and plopped me down in front of a wooden box with a crank on the outside, and it was instructed to turn it. And just like that, I was a Futurist musician. Of course, I didn't love the music we were playing, but it wasn't so hard, so I couldn't really care less about Marinetti's creative vision or whatever. I was making money, and that's all that mattered to me.
Can you tell me a bit about the performance from the perspective of the orchestra?
It was definitely one of their weirder ones, that's for sure. It was about this train that was completely infatuated with a bald eagle and proceeded to do some interesting interpretive dances. Per usual, the audience was not happy about this and began their routine of throwing rotten produce. I mean, I got a little on me, but I was more worried about what my wife would say when I got home. She hated the smell, but it keeps food on the table, so she really can't complain that much.
Was the orchestra affected by the riot at all?
Other than a little fruit, they didn't really care about us at all. I mean, their anger was all pointed at the actors and the Futurists, so we escaped them scot-free. When you think about it, it's kind of funny. I mean, I laugh at those audience members. Like, come on. Are you really getting that worked up over an art show? That's hilarious! I mean, you feel so strongly about your dislike for a show, you choose to riot in the streets. Do you know how crazy you seem? But I cannot say it's not expected. I mean, sometimes I think that they're trying to make people mad, but hey, I can't say too much about them. They do write my checks after all.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Maserati Gelato. Have a nice trip.
Of course.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for being such a great audience. We hope you will join us for our next segment of Italians Being Angry. Once again, this is Cannoli Coffee Pot with Italian news, the most reliable news in Italy. And yes, I am still wearing pants.